Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our December session of the HEA's Hydrogen Bytes public webinar series. The HEA Hydrogen Bytes webinar series is an opportunity for members to showcase what they're doing in the sector, and we're really excited to be joined today by James Milner, who's the CEO at Wild Hydrogen. Wild Hydrogen are a clean tech company transforming the energy space with carbon negative hydrogen and biomethane. So without further ado, I will pass you over to James. Thanks, James. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Great. Thanks, Olivia. Nice to meet everyone. Yeah, I'm James Milner, and I'm the CEO of a company called Wild Hydrogen. And yeah, I'd just like to share a little bit about what we've been up to. We've got a very different pathway for making hydrogen and for decarbonising. And so I'll pop up some slides. So hopefully you can see that. So yeah, we've got a very simple mission here at Wild Hydrogen. We're fueling a fossil-free future. And what does that future look like? From our perspective, I see this future looking like, every pint of beer that you drink, you remove carbon from the atmosphere and leave fossil fuels in the ground. Every time you take a shower, you leave fossil fuels in the ground and carbon from the atmosphere. And every time you take a flight, even, you leave fossil fuels in the ground and remove carbon from the atmosphere. This is the future, that the vision that we're painting at Wild Hydrogen, and every day we're getting a little bit step closer to this. So we're a pre-revenue startup into scale up. So we're really a scale up now. We've been going for 4 years. We'll have our 4th anniversary in February next year. And yeah, we've got something that I think is very interesting. So I'll crack into the slides. I hope everyone can see that okay. So, I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but one of the things that I find quite interesting, and a market that is really untapped, is when we look at how we decarbonize molecules in particular. So, we're doing a brilliant job globally in terms of decarbonizing or greening up our electricity grids. I'm an electrical distribution engineer by training. That's how I started my career. And the impact of solar and wind in particular, and nuclear, is tremendous. The move from coal to gas is huge as well, in terms of the impact on the environment. With 900 CO2 equivalent grams per kilowatt hour with gas, with coal, sorry, but with gas it's down to 250. So that move just from coal to gas is more is a bigger impact actually than from gas to net zero. But we've in the UK we're predominantly gas is still our main source of electricity generation, but quickly followed by solar and wind. And in fact, it was only last year that we were at 50% of our electrons were green in the UK electricity grid, which was the first in the G7. But the drive, the UK drive in particular is to electrify everything, and I'm not against that at all. But it won't work. There's not enough copper in the world. There's too many NIMBYs to 6x, 8x our electricity grid. We need to fight this battle on 2 fronts, on the electrons front and the molecules front. And we're way behind on molecules. So you can see here on this graph, we've got global consumption, and molecules represent a huge amount. 80% of our consumption is in the form of diesel, petrol, aviation fuel, etc., gas. And globally, we're only 15% of those are green. Most of those are Brazil, actually. And a little pockets in Europe. Denmark stand out. 40% of their gas grid is green molecules from mainly anaerobic digestion and gasification. In the UK, only 2% of our molecules are green. So we're behind when we look at through the lens of molecules. So this is a big prize. We've got and it's overlooked. Let's say we need to fight on both fronts. Not enough copper to electrify the world. Plus, with electricity demand going up, in particular with AI data centers and EVs, you know, the solar and wind is not going to be sufficient, and the infrastructure is not there. But what we do have is a fantastic gas grid. We can move like liquid hydrocarbons around. We've put a lot of effort into that as a species around the planet, and we're very good at it. So let's just green up the molecules and the electrons, and I think we'll get somewhere. So what is our technology all about? So we take biogenic feedstock, so that could be wastewater, agri residues, even plastics. We can take woody material. We can take lots of different feedstocks that an anaerobic digester can't take, for example, and we'll turn those and we'll convert them with a very efficient thermal process into biomethane, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and biochar. And that's about a 98%, 99%, depending on the feedstock conversion. So, you know, those biogenic feedstocks contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and we almost convert them fully into these super useful molecules. And we can tune the technology to favor more methane or more hydrogen, and we capture a lot of CO2 in the process. We have no emissions. And we also make a lot of biochar. So about 30% by dry mass comes out in a really refined, pure biochar product. And then those three gases are represented in a super clean syngas. So we don't have any syngas cleanup at all. The technology enables these gases to come out, and then we just need to separate them, or not, actually. We're finding customers that quite like this mix, especially liquid e-fuels customers that want to make methanol. And we're doing this with a technology that only needs heat, so it doesn't need a large grid connection. It doesn't need green electrons. We will use our own gas, or percentage of our own gas we produce, to make that heat. So that makes us pretty unique. It certainly got my interest as CEO 4 years ago when I met the founder and inventor, Mark. Brought me out of retirement, and we're now 20 strong, and we've got proven technology to a level. I'll just talk a little bit about the chemistry. So chemistry is really well understood in the lab. It's called supercritical water reforming. There are a number of attempts globally around the world to scale this. We're scaling it in a very unique way. We're using a batch method. That means we can take a much broader range of feedstock. Supercritical water is an organic solvent. So in other words, if you put wood or anything organic into supercritical water, it instantly dissolves and makes those useful molecules. And at the temperatures and pressures that we're at, we don't get those tricky long chain hydrocarbons forming, which typically you know, tar and bitumen, which are the bane of pyrolysis and gasification, which is why, you know, the countryside's littered with failed gasification plants, unfortunately. My inventor and CEO and CTO, he was part of that gasification technology. He really understands it, and this ticks all the boxes. So it takes that organic matter and doesn't have all the issues that gasifiers have. The challenge is engineering. So this is our prototype journey. Millie was designed in my kitchen and tested at Cranfield Uni. Nano is the lab instrument of choice, which is just a 75 milliliter small reactor. And then Micro and Mini we've built out ourselves in our test facility and research lab. And Mini is 6,000 times the capacity of Nano. So Micro and Mini are first of a kind in the world, and they're producing you know, considerable amounts of useful product. Here you can see them in action. So we bought a Nano, which is the lab choice, so we could replicate all the papers that have been written about supercritical water reforming and the promise, really the holy grail of biogenic conversion in terms of its efficiency and making those products. And you can see Mini here, bottom right is the 6,000 times scale-up machine. Our next part of our journey is to move from our research facility into our factory. So we've just acquired this factory where we'll be making these units. and we'll be having a pilot there very soon next year. So busy slide, but this tries to sum up really where we are in our journey. So we were in stealth mode when we first started. What we didn't want to do was overpromise and underdeliver. We learned that from the electrolyzers. So what we wanted to do was prove this model out, prove the techno-economics all the way, and also use the engineering, to show how we could scale this up. We effectively launched with a public launch with a crowdfunding campaign. Is something that our board were very keen on because they felt that there's no one better than an armchair scientist or engineer picking through this to see whether they want to spend their hard-earned cash investing in us, and that was very successful. It was a difficult campaign, I would say. It was during Trump. It was last year, Trump's election, which was drill baby drill. So climate tech was not on the agenda really globally, but we did really well, and we raised 120% higher than our ticket, and we managed to close the round earlier than we thought. That led to a really amazing year, and we're just coming to the end of this year and reflecting on it as a team. So we attracted some big names. Wales and West Utilities have funded us with a project, Ofgem funded, to look at blending first methane and then hydrogen into the gas grid to decarbonize the gas grid. Suez, largest recycling firm in the world, Paris-based. We've got the ear of them. They see waste to incinerating waste to energy as being really a transition technology, and they're looking for something that's different and cleaner and doesn't have the issues and is more efficient. And that's why we've got the ear of Suez. We have an MOU with them. On the back of those two, we managed to win two Innovate grants, one of those being a smart grant, the other one an investor partnership program to the tune of about 2.1 million. And then like a snowball, that led to us getting a loan. So we now have a runway that takes us right through to mid-27, where we'll be looking at our series round. So really what I wanted to share with everyone today was, this is a different technology. It's disruptive. We've got the ear of government. We've got the ear of some big names. We've got our first customers. So the food enterprise part being a key one, where we would take agricultural waste, huge amounts actually, from the food industry, just outside Norfolk. So they've got the largest indoor farm there with Fisher Farms. They've got the largest cut flour wholesaler, believe it or not. A lot of waste comes from cut flours, and also Coleman's mint and mustard sauce. Again, a lot of waste. So we often get asked, well, there's nowhere near enough feedstock for you guys to move the needle. There absolutely is. You just got to look in the right place, and you've got to have a technology that's capable of taking lots of different types of feedstock, from plastic through to wet woody waste through to cellulosic waste and potentially growing fuels. I'll give an example. In the US, we were out there last year. There's 1 billion tons. That would be enough to supply half of Europe with gas if we used our technology. They're only using 300 million of that 1 billion tons of agri residue currently. The rest of it is typically being burned or left to rot and methane produced into the atmosphere. So next stage on our journey is with the government grant is to have this pilot plant at our factory. So we're going to have that CPI verified by Q4 next year. And then with our customers on board, we'll be getting our first production plant rolled out in sort of late 27 into 2028. And then we see the obligatory hockey stick as we grow out, and we've got ambitions to be a unicorn, even potentially a gigacorn with this tech. Huge market. If we look at gas in particular, just replacing gas, whether that's first of all with methane, as I said, and then with hydrogen, that's really got the ear of Wales and West, because they could see how we could start with injecting methane into the gas grid, waiting for the nascent hydrogen market to catch up, and then we'll be ready to blend hydrogen into the grid. I'll skip this because it just shows really what our projections are for growth. This is key really. So to sort of sum up, we'd have many of these units similar to solar and wind decarbonising the electricity grid, we would have a number of units decarbonising gas users and the gas grid. So it's rather than a scale up, it's really a number up. And that's really where solar and wind have seen their strength. Embedded generation, where the feedstock is, where the wind and where the sun shines, we'll be putting these where the agri residues are, where the grown fuels are, where the plastic waste are, where the black bin incinerators are. And the main key thing is that we're Farage proof. If Farage gets in and brings in Trump policies, we don't need HEA rounds, we don't need CFDs. We're just fossil fuel parity price for both methane and hydrogen. And also we have an abundance of CO2. So that CO2 is an order of magnitude cheaper than direct air capture, and direct air capture, being a very expensive way of extracting CO2 from the atmosphere, which is although it's a major problem for climate change, it's in tiny volumes, 0.04%. So you need a lot of energy to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. We're getting that CO2 captured for us by nature, using plants and even seaweed we've tried, and that works very well. Growing seaweed under offshore wind is an interesting one, and again that would be enough with the offshore wind projects that are planned around the UK. If we harvested all the seaweed, that would replace all North Sea gas using this tech. So that it shows that there is an opportunity to scale here. We've got a very strong board. David Gammon in particular, he was behind DeepMind, the first AGI, or first AI, sorry, not an AGI yet. And so he loves disruptive UK hard tech. He found us and said, this looks like the best next thing. I'm going to invest. More than that, do you need a chairman? I'm going to come and chair you guys and take you to unicorn status. So he's been brilliant. He's my mentor, very active, hands-on chairman. And he's the one that's found us the funding, got us to a position with customers, and we're ready to sort of launch this thing, irrespective of whether the government are behind us or not, really, as I mentioned, with no subsidies required. We've got a bright young team. We're recruiting more now. We've got 3 job adverts out. We're 20 strong. We've got 3 job adverts out over the Christmas period. So if anyone wants to come and join and make a difference in the world and move the needle on climate change, we're looking for a senior engineer, a chief engineer really, and also a systems control engineer and a wet chemist researcher. Those are the 3 positions we have open at the moment, but we've got a fantastic team in the West Country. We're based just north of Bristol. We've also got a London base, which is where I am now. Yeah, so and also, if there's anyone out there that wants to invest, we do have a round open. It's a 6 million round. Sorry, we're half full on that. So we've got 3 million left. We've got enough runway so that we can, we're not desperate, but it means that we can choose the right partners to come and join us at this stage. So yeah, that's me. Whistle stop tour. Conscious, it's just a bite size, but I could talk for Britain on this, but I'm happy to open it up for questions.
Great. Thanks very much, James, for such an exciting story, both in terms of the technology, but also how you've developed commercially and the story of the team and the board as well. Really helpful to have that deep dive. There are already a couple of questions in the chat, so we'll go straight to those questions. And please do put your questions in the Q&A part of the webinar if you're kind of brewing on your questions as the presentation is just finished. So we've got a question from Paula here. She's asking around, how can you tune the process to yield more methane or more hydrogen? Is there any catalyst used? And how do you deal with feedstock variability and any residues left?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. Great question. We're learning as we go because when we've been learning for the last 3 years how flexible this technology is, and the batch nature of it means that we're able to take lots of different types of feedstock, as I said, but also different particle size, We don't need all that feedstock pre-processing, which many of our competitors need. So we can take whole logs, for example, and pop those in. The supercritical water is a phenomenal liquid. Actually, it's not a liquid. It's neither a liquid or a gas, but it's a phase of water. That's the catalyst. The key is to maintain those conditions safely and be able to feed that feedstock in safely and then retrieve the gas. We let the supercritical water do the heavy lifting for us, and as I say, it breaks down those complex cellulose lignosic based molecules into those simple molecules. How do we tune for hydrogen and methane? There's two variables. One is water content, the other is heat. So the hotter we are, the more hydrogen we make, the lower the heat, the more methane we make. So it's as simple as that. And it's relatively straightforward. As an engineer, I love simple things. The challenge is material selection, the feedstock loading, and the energy recovery. Those are the sort of three key engineering challenges that we've cracked, and that we've spent 3.5 years and £5 million doing that. And we're now ready to, as I say, to scale this thing up in a modular fashion. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Those are the challenges, but we have them cracked, Paula. Yeah.
Thanks, James. We've got a question here from Luca from Cranfield University. He thanked you for the presentation, and his question is, what is the minimum solid content or maximum water content for the feed to be processed with this technology?
Yeah, so we have a bit of a saying here at Wild Hydrogen: the wetter the better, which is the opposite of our competitors, which typically the drier the better if you're gasifying or using pyrolysis. So there's some sweet spots, but you need a lot of energy to heat a lot of water. So if you look in the lab, then 95% to 98% moisture content that's the maximum hydrogen yield. And there you're actually getting water donating hydrogen as well as the feedstock. So if you're looking wood, it's about, by dry mass, about 6% in a branch of a tree, or in any sort of lignin-based material, about 6% is hydrogen. If you're at high moisture levels, at 95% plus, then you can actually get to, we got on Terrific Tuesday, which was our great day with our prototype, we got to 18% hydrogen yield by dry mass, which shows that the water was splitting, and we were doing a water gas shift effectively in the reactor. And so what we're discovering again is that if you're at those temperatures and pressures, it's much more forgiving for complex feedstocks, different types of feedstocks, potentially even contaminants. They'll come out, typically the contaminants will come out in the condensed water, not in the gas phase. So a lot easier to treat the gas. For those that are technical, that syngas, it comes out super clean, irrespective of contaminants that may be contained in the feedstock. If we're in production, then we're looking at probably lower water content, because, as I say, it takes a lot of energy to heat that water up, and we want to get those precious molecules, and there'll be an optimum amount. So we're looking at targeting somewhere between 40 and 70% moisture content. And where the feedstock doesn't have that moisture in it inherently, we would add water, and we will recover that water at the end. So it's not like an electrolyzer where we need loads and loads of fresh water. Again, it doesn't need to be fresh. Then we'll recover that water and reuse it as well through a filtration process. So yeah, between 40 and 70, we're honing in on what that looks like. It's very much feedstock dependent.
Great, thanks, James. It is worth saying that there will be a recording uploaded onto the HEA website, as James is powering through lots of technical details. So if anybody wants to look back on the presentation and the answers to the questions, then that will be available on the HEA website. There's another question from Luca in terms of what is the size for one unit that you have in mind at full scale, either in terms of tons per year or kilograms per cycle that the unit can process?
Yeah, so again, we we're looking at comparing ourselves potentially to an electrolyzer. So if we just talk hydrogen for a minute, then we're targeting up to a 1 megawatt as our unit scale. We're in a FEED program at the moment to look at what does that optimum rate look like. So it'll be somewhere between 500 kilowatts and a megawatt. And I'm talking output here, not input. So we're looking at 500 kg of hydrogen to 800 kg of hydrogen per day. That's the sweet spot when it comes to energy recovery, etc. So that's the scale that Food Enterprise Park, for example, are looking for, and they would buy potentially 6 units off us. They've got a 6 megawatt requirement for gas, and that's just to heat an indoor farm. That's and they're currently using propane because they're off grid, so which costs them a fortune. So if they can use their own agri waste to heat an indoor farm, suddenly the business case for indoor farming works, and indoor farming is required for food security. It's required for being climate proof. The last 2 years have been the worst. Anyone that's watched Clarkson's Farm will understand growing food, homegrown food, which is important to the UK at the moment, is tricky with our climate and the weather. It rains at the wrong time of year, or it's sunny at the wrong time of year. Indoor farming solves that, and it also reduces food miles. So you go in Tesco's this time of year, and you've got strawberries from Morocco, you've got green beans from Kenya flown in, bonkers. Let's grow those indoors with cheap energy and also CO2. So if we pump CO2 into an indoor farm, of which we've got lots, suddenly the yield goes up. So yeah, it's some interesting cases out there that we're looking at. And what we're finding, actually, so a slight aside, is where do we best play? We've got this. We've done a lot of exploring. We're looking now at exploiting this technology. Which markets do we go into? So e-fuels is an interesting one as well. As I mentioned, the direct air capture for CO2 is extremely expensive. We've got CO2 at £40 a ton rather than £400 a ton. We're an order of magnitude cheaper. We've got hydrogen between £1 and £5 a kilo. Suddenly we're at diesel equivalents with no HEA rounds or anything like that, etc. So which market do we play in? Where do we target is really going to be the focus for the team next year, alongside pushing the technology out.
Great, James, thanks. There's a question from Philip Brain. What's your plan for the CO2? Is it food grade?
Yeah, well, we can make the CO2 food grade, no problem, with existing off-the-shelf technology. As I mentioned, the syngas is extremely clean, and we're purifying using a pressure swing absorber, partnering with Edinburgh Uni on that. It's a fantastic technology, actually. It's a one-step process to do 3-stage gas separation. Yeah, that we can then filter that to get it up to food grade. And obviously we'd work within the regs in terms of what the primary feedstock into the system would be. But yeah, food grade, definitely.
Okay, great. And then just one final question in terms of on the average efficiency of the process. So how much of the feedstock's energy is converted into hydrogen or methane after subtracting the gas you need for heating?
Yeah, great. Again, another great question. So what we're finding, the models that we're using now and we're targeting is about 50% efficiency. So how I couch that is we would use 50% of our gas, whether that's methane or hydrogen, and use that to make the heat. We can also burn the biochar to make heat. So if there isn't a biochar market, we can make the heat that way. But about 50% of our product is necessary to keep the process going. But as I say, that's very high compared to others, and it's self-sufficient without a large grid connection.
Great, thanks, James, very much. Well, it's been really clear how disruptive this technology is, not in terms of unlocking the barriers that the hydrogen industry is facing, but also the suite of other climate benefits there is that is going to contribute on a broader scale. There's already a couple of comments in the chat, really thanking you for the presentation and a will to continue the conversation. So if you happy to put your details in the chat function, or best way for people to contact you. That would be really helpful for people that are interested to get in touch directly. And we are out of time for questions, but there is another question from Adam Brooks, which I will share with you, James, by email, so you've got that. And thanks again for joining us today for this session of the Hydrogen Byte series. The HEA, this is just one of the many activities that the HEA does to support our members in maximising the visibility of the great work that they're doing in the sector, both for industry stakeholders, but also amongst other key sector growth stakeholders as well, whether that be in the finance community or at a government level. So thanks very much, James, once again, and I'm sure you'll see all the nice comments coming through in the chat as well, which is always nice. And thanks a lot, and see you all again soon.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Please reach out with any questions directly. I've put my email in the chat. Don't know how dangerous that is, but I'll see what my inbox looks like over Christmas. Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.